What's up guys, Fracus back here with part 2 of the ChatCooldown plugin for Rust modding. Last time we set up the 2 commands for the admins to turn the cooldown system on and off. Now I'm going to quickly go over how to reload your config file. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but pretty much we're going to do a command is equal to let's see, reload. We're going to do just let them type out reload config file. And what we'll do here, request config. This is the function we wrote earlier on the that we used for the server in it. And pretty much what it does is it just pretty much stores the new value of the config file. It just checks your config file, stores it. So that's what we're gonna do there. And I already have this written out for the most part. Let's see, we can do player.message chat cooldown.config has been reloaded. Alright, that way they know that that it worked. So we can do another if else statement. I've already written this out just to save some time. We're going to do the admin can write get config, and it's going to get the table value that we just reloaded. And this can return the cooldown. So in this case, if they were to write get a config, and if the config file was on the server and it said 10, it would put 10 in this cooldown variable, and then it'll announce to that player that the cooldown is set for 10 seconds. And that get config is just a good way to make sure that the reload config actually worked. So that's how you do that. I went over that really quickly, but hopefully you understand. We're using the function that we made in the last tutorial. Request config, and it just reloads the config file pretty much. And that, that's just so that you don't have to do a server restart to get the config file. So here it has to restart in order for it to grab it, but now we made a command so to reload the config file. Very handy. So what we need to do now is we need to come up here to the on chat, and we need to go ahead and first of all we need to check and see if it's on, if the cooldown system is on, right? We turn it, if the admin has typed in cooldown on, then it's going to store on to the cooldown data store. So we're going to do cooldown on is equal to data store dot get chat cooldown and cooldown. Right, so here we added it, chat cooldown, and here we're getting it, chat cooldown. Alright, so we can write an if statement here, and remember, like I said before, the on chat's just waiting for someone to put in some text into the text area in Rust. So we're going to write an if statement if cooldown on is equal to on. Then we can go ahead and get to the next statement. So we need to know the time. We need to know a few things. We need to know the cooldown time. We need to know the time that the player last wrote something to the chat, and then we also need to know the current time. So we're going to do time left, and we're going to have to write our own function to do this. And we're just going to write our own function called get time remaining. And we're going to pass in a player object. Right? So what we're going to do here is it's going to give us a player object, and then we're going to store that. We're going to use that player object to pass it through our own get time remaining function. So we can go down here, outside of everything else, write our own custom function, get time remaining in player. So we went over functions before. Hopefully you guys understood how they worked. So we're going to pass through this player object, and then we can use it down here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the cooldown from the config file, right? Like we did before. We're going to do data.get table value. We've done this before. And the table name is chat cooldown, and the key is cooldown. And so we've done this right here. Same thing right here. I could have just copied and pasted that. But yeah, so same thing. and last time it gave us 10, and here it should give us 10. So one thing is it may be saved as a string. I think it is, so we're just going to do, just in case, we're going to make it, this is a pre-written function that's standard in JavaScript called parseInt. It just makes sure that this is going to return an integer instead of a string. That way we can do math on it. If it's a string, you can't do math. And that's actually the last video that I made. It just got done loading or saving. Alright, so if, and we just need to do some checks here. If cooldown is equal, if it's equal to undefined, or if I'm gonna check and see if it's NaN. So just pretty much just checking, making sure the data is if it hasn't been set anything yet, we're just gonna set it to 0. Cooldown is equal to 0. That way no harm can be done, right? So if they haven't set anything, it's fine to just go ahead and make it 0 then, because there's no cooldown. Cooldown is 0, that means, you know, it's not going to affect anything at all. We're just going to make sure it's set to something though. We want to make sure it's set to an actual integer so we don't have this plugins that crash. Well, now we're going to do chat time, and this is just going to be a variable that stores the last time that they actually said something in the chat, right? So we need to do, we haven't done it yet, but in the up here we're going to store the last time. When this is called on chat, we're going to store the last time that they said something. We'll do that in a minute. Let's go ahead, and I already know what I'm going to name it, so we'll do data store dot get the table name, and we can do, okay, for the chat time, it's unique to the individual player. So what I usually do is, you don't have to do this, we can do player.steam ID, and player is being passed through here, right? So that we're using this player object, and we're just saying get the Steam ID, because that's a unique thing that's unique to every single person, and chat time, right? So it's the table value is ChatCooldown, and then the key is player.steamID with chat time tagged to the end of it. And so hopefully you understand how that works. And we're going to just parseInt this too, make sure it's turned into an integer, and make sure you get your brackets all lined up. Otherwise you'll have a bug. So if chat time, we're going to do the same thing, undefined, or, oh yeah, I don't know if I explained this before, but these two signs right here side by side, I can't remember what they're called right now. That just means or. If you do the double and, that means you do both. You got both of them have to be true. This one, if either one of them's true, then go ahead and execute this code. Alright, so we're just going to make sure that it's been set. If it hasn't been set, then we're just going to make it 0. And the same thing with this. If it's 0, no harm done, because if it's 0, then it's not going to affect anything at all. So we're going to do var time, and this is what I talked about before, right? Up here, the system environment. We'll go ahead and copy that. This is a JavaScript function that you can just use. It's standard. So we're going to go ahead and paste that. And this is the current time. I think it's in milliseconds. I think it's like a certain amount of time past 1970. I'm not sure exactly, but either way, it's I'll show you how to use it. So it's gonna return time in seconds, because you divide by 1,000, divide milliseconds by 1,000 to give you seconds. So that's the current time. Time is equal to current time, right? And that you don't have to test anything for that. That's set. That's not gonna mess up. So you don't have to check if it's undefined or anything. So the next thing we're going to do is time left. Alright, and this is why we this is why we made this whole function, right? Get time remaining. So what we're going to do here, we're going to do cooldown minus time minus chat time. Okay, and that may look a little confusing at first, but I'll explain what it means, okay? Cooldown is the time in the config file, so in our case, it's 10. So let me just write this out in the comment down here. 10 minus, okay, current time. Let's say it's not going to be 1,000, but let's say it is. Let's say it's 1,000 seconds. That's the current time. Okay, and let's say your last chat time was 999 seconds. Okay, So this is what it's doing here. 10 minus, we can do the math first in here. That's going to be 1, so 10 minus 1 is equal to 9. Okay? That's how much time is left before they can talk again, 9 seconds. Now, hopefully that makes sense to you. It's not too complicated, but it's complicated enough to look kind of weird, you know, but hopefully you got that. And this is why we wrote this function. We want to return the value time left, okay, and we're going to use it up here. So we got the cooldown time from the config file. We got the last chat time because we're going to save it up here. Whenever they write a chat, we're going to store the time that they actually get to write it. The system time is the current time. Time left is how much time before they can actually type in the chat again. So let's go back up here, and remember we wrote this custom function, get time remaining, and on chat, get time remaining, and we pass a playthrough. So time left is going to be, if it was our last example, it would be 9. Alright guys, it's taking a little bit longer than I thought. I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half here. I'll catch you back in part 3.